This is the Focus on Parliament show on Civic Space TV, brought to you by the Center for Constitutional Governance. I am Kwagala, your host. Widely regarded as a social utility service world over, the cost of education in Uganda continues to skyrocket, amid concerns from the parents and the learners that they are not getting value for their money. Now, on this program, we examine this challenging situation and the implications it has on the education system in the country. Also on the program, we examine the implications of the newly formed Patriotic League of Uganda and whether it has the potential to change the country's political landscape. Joining me to make a sense of today's topics is a panel composed of a lady and two gentlemen. Starting from my extreme right, this is, yes, my right, is Mr. Ochieno Joseph. Mr. Ochieno Joseph is a UPC party leader, a senior citizen of the country, and a renowned political commentator. You're most welcome, Mr. Joseph.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Say hello to the viewership.
Viewers, I'm delighted to be here, as ever, but more importantly, I'm looking forward to the conversation around the subjects that I know is close to your heart. Education, particularly, as we know, and you know, it has been turned into a matter and a business for profit. I believe education is the #1 equalizer, and in this country right now, you know, if you look at the educational system, I think it's nothing short of appetite, so absolutely sad.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. Next to Mr. Joseph is Winfred Mugambwa. Winfred Mugambwa is the Executive Director for Rights for Her, a civil rights organization that champions rights for the girl child, and also a regular on this platform. Winfred, say hi to the audience.
Hello everyone, greetings. I'm happy to be here, especially now when we are talking about issues of education. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Winnie. Next to Winnie, and last but not least, is Mr. Bwesigye Julius. Bwesigye Julius is an advocate of the High Court and a legal officer at the Advocate Research Facility. Julius, you're most welcome. Say hi to the viewership.
Hello, countrymen and women. It's a particular honor for me to be here, especially to discuss the two topics. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, our guests, for honoring our invitation once again. Let me start with you, Mr. Joseph. One of the, popular achievements of the NRM, or at least the self-stated achievements of the NRM, is to say that they liberalized the economy, opened it up to massive investment opportunities, both from the, the foreign market, but also internally from the local entrepreneurs. And one of those key sectors of the economy is education. But we also recognize that education is a social utility service for the benefit of all, for all the masses. Now, today, in contemporary Uganda, we have a very serious challenge. The cost of education is escalating rapidly by the day. And this is portending very serious challenges for the parents who are not in a position to afford the cost of educating their children. But also, there are serious challenges that even the education itself, the quality of education that is being disseminated to the children, is not sufficient to prepare them for the modern day era challenges. What have you got to say about this problem? Let us understand.
No, thank you very much for having me. I must say that I sound tired because I spent a long evening the other night and last night, and being a Saturday, so sometimes you think those of us who are activists would relax, but we don't. But knowing very well that it was this topic, I had to make sure that I got up early and fresh and in time to come here. And to come here, I had to give myself 2 hours for a journey that should normally take 25 minutes for the airport. But part of the reason is simply because of the almost criminal liberalization agenda that this regime designed, basically on the question of transportation. But that said, to almost seem to give some kind of a medal to NRA for buying into the structural adjustment program by the Bretton Woods institutions, namely the IMF and World Bank, is to give them not only a blank check, but actually to formally lock into the future of the children of this country into, if you like, social and economic slavery. That was one of the most disastrous programs ever undertaken by this NRA regime. Many people bought into it because when Museveni came to power, for some very strange reason, possibly a different topic, everybody else thought that whatever he said was necessarily true. So the liberalization agenda was a criminal event, and is something that a future UPC government perhaps would want to seek to investigate. And in this case, NRA guys can rest assured that we will not seek to arrest and imprison them, because we believe in national reconciliation. But in a very important way, it's one of those things that, including economists and academicians in this country and in this continent, need to investigate. And for information across the continent, and I have these conversations with the various networks and various partners around the continent, this is something which is at the moment urgently being reviewed, whether or not the neoliberal agenda that the NRA bought wholesale, but for a different reason, is something which is necessarily sustainable. Governments across the world are now reviewing whether or not this neoliberal agenda is the way forward, and so forth. Therefore, when you hear things to do with the BRICS, in the realignment of global polity, global economics, part of it is really basically because of the idea that the London-Washington consensus is no longer sustainable. And for people like Museveni, who pretended that they were intellectuals, not to have seen this at the beginning, and of course for us in the UPC, we saw it, and to go ahead and to buy into it wholesale by selling the future of our country, as I said, I want to repeat, was criminal. Now, when it comes to particularly the question of education, it's actually one of the most disastrous programs ever implemented. I said at the beginning that this is actually, at the moment, education apartheid being practiced by this regime. And I have also said that had it been the case that what is obtaining in this country today is what obtained when Museveni was staying with Mzee Byanyima, you know? Museveni would never have successfully attended Intare School. He never would successfully have attended Mbara High School. He definitely, and this is official, Museveni would never have gone to Dar es Salaam University, because his family would definitely not have afforded taking him to Dar es Salaam University, let alone any university as it were at the time. So for Mr. Museveni, who got the privilege of a fundamentally decent, socially progressive education program, as I said, by UPC, to subject the children of this country to this kind of apartheid is actually terribly wrong. Now, there is this misleading nonsense about universal primary education. 3 days ago, I got a phone call, Winnie, from a constituent of Tororo. This gentleman unfortunately seemed to have got my telephone number wrong. He was trying to reach out to the district women member of parliament. He must have a list of numbers for politicians or people in politics, public people spaces. And so it was a missed call. So I called him back. And he was extremely confident that he had called Sarah Pendy's number. Sarah happens to be a good friend of mine. And that he wanted help from Sarah. And I said, no, sorry, this is wrong. And it was quite late actually in the evening when I returned to school. And he was saying that, Sarah has always helped him, and he wanted help, because with the school fees, Sarah helps him, and actually eventually school fees and books, X-books for his children going to school. And, I was tired.
This is a parent?
A parent. A parent. And I didn't know the person. Maybe I know him if I met him, but it was just a call and I was returned it. And so I persuaded him that I was in a meeting, and quite clearly I wasn't in the meeting. It was 10 o'clock at night. Normally that's the time I would also be preparing for bed, praying, or in many cases sometimes reading. So basically I didn't be busy. But in any case, in that conversation I was prepared to sustain, let alone take the honors of them. Was I not going to report to Sarah? But the point had been made. I told him that, it's a wrong number, I should check on Sarah Pendy's number and call. Now, to reach a situation in which somebody who's quite confident enough to have a member of parliament's telephone number, but begging for school fees and begging for money for books. Let me tell you this. Universal primary education was a UPC idea, UPC agenda. It was supposed to have been implemented in this country in 1972. That was before we were born, and around the time we would have been starting primary school, had a not taken over. Now, that universal primary education at the time was bound to be replacing the then generally progressive primary education and secondary education, which was substantially subsidized by the state. Parents could afford primary education and lower secondary education using their tea, their coffee, or any other thing. But once you hit O level and you go into A level education in this country was free. University education in this country was free. Any education that you attained after PLE, primary meaning grade 2 teachers, was free. Grade 3 teachers was free. Technical education was free. All other tertiary education that you obtained in this country before NRA came to power was officially free, meaning the state provided for it as a social service, you want to put it, as you said at the beginning. That is what NRA killed as part of this. Now, number two, fast forward, fast forward came the Obote government. Of course, I mean interrupted that. In Obote government, middle after the elections, we opened up what they call third world schools. Some people call it the charter schools. Every sub-country in this country had a new secondary school. The idea was that they were supposed to be built and equipped to capacity within a 10-year program. And so therefore, our projection was that universal primary education that NRA talks about was supposed to have been introduced in 1991. Now, what I told me this person, and I've told this program I think before, that Joe, by 1991, we expected we'd have all the classrooms, would have all the scholastic materials, would be able to afford the teachers, would be able to pay them. In other words, would be able to equip the schools. Meaning, when you open up to universal education, you have the capacity to do so without compromising standards. That is what NRA killed. If you consider today how much this regime pays per child in primary school, I don't know the figures, but just check. It is actually an insult compared to the subsidy the state gave to primary education at the time, which was not yet free. Obote told me, and this was a program, let me say, primary education and lower secondary, parents should contribute something. That's actually what I called it.
Cost sharing?
That's not cost. No. Education generally should be a free and a universally free thing. And that's where we're going for. But at the time, based on the size of our economy and we're a new emerging nation, let parents pay something. So private education substantially subsidized, not cost sharing, subsidized, parents pay something. So called fees, then they teach parents and teachers association, things like that. And then secondary school, meaning O level. The rest was universally free. And I'm a beneficiary of that. So is Museveni and many of the people around his circles were basically thieving our minorities these days, particularly the older ones. And some of the younger ones would have been children of beneficiaries of this program. So these guys know this thing. Whatever is happening under education is criminal. And I can tell you, it's actually a shame that people like Museveni, who are direct beneficiaries of this, should actually subject our people to that. Now, when the OECD partners, global partners, came here in 1984, based on the economic turnaround, they suggested to Milton Obote that, based on your economic performance, your universal primary education programs could start in 1986, 87. Of course, they do this as a program, regardless of whichever government is there. Obote said, no, we will stick to our 10-year program. And he told me this, that I said that because I knew that if we were to start these things earlier, we would compromise the quality of education, we would end up with so many children undertree. What we're planning to do that time was you create universal primary education, free and compulsory. But free and compulsory meaning you take children, to schools, but there's everything, that the children needed. The books, the classrooms, their desks, their laboratories, their libraries, teachers are well paid, teachers' accommodation are provided for as it used to be. That was the education, that's the primary education. And it's the foundation education. It's my primary education in Uganda that made the Ochieno that I am. And I normally talk about this thing because it's a subject I take very, very seriously. Education is the number one equalizer in society. It's education that will make an average young child in Kalisizo, not known in Masaka, whose parents have never reached Masaka, move from Kalisizo, go to a major national school, or whatever it is, and become the number one citizen of this country at any time. It's education that does that. And to do whatever is at the moment when you talk about cost of education, I'm not quite sure how more misleading we can be about that. You know, it's education, health, infrastructure, and transportation, the bigger things. People who need early civics, those are things that governments should provide for, and we provide for those things through our taxation. It's not money from Museveni's pockets, it's not money from his wife's pockets, it's not money from some of his thieving people's pockets. It's public money, it's the taxes that you and I pay for. Do you know what? Just to conclude this, look at the annual budget and see how much spend goes from Museveni's socks, how much spend goes to take his daughter for just a medical review in Germany, wherever it is. Check how much money goes into defense, how much money goes into classified expenses. Some of the classified things basically to check who Ochieno kisses in the evening, you know, meaning security, versus the amount of provisions you give for education. You treble education budget, it will still not meet that. So the money generally is there for education and health. It is simply how we prioritize our programs.
Thank you, Joseph, for that comprehensive exposition on the topic. Winnie, Mr. Joseph introduces a very interesting perspective to the conversation by juxtaposing today's education to the education that they had then during their formative stages. So the question is, does today's education system reflect the very exorbitant cost, and what could be the cause of the cost, first and foremost?
Thank you so much. First of all, I will start with you asked a question, what could be the cause of the high costs? Of course, I believe there are different things that are contributing to it that I also talk about. But again, I'll start with Uganda is one of the countries also who are focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals. And Sustainable Development Goal for COAL talks about inclusive and quality education. Like how the previous speaker spoke about the quality now, we can see that now it's about quantity. There are very many schools around. And then when you ask a question about why the prices, the cost is high, I believe it's because everything has been commercialized. Yes, people are so much focused on, it's a business now. Most schools, it's a business. Yes, the government has a private school public schools where people have to go. But if government can't put there enough facilities, because every parent, by the time you want to take your child at school, there are things you expect them to get from school. There's a quality of education you want your child to have. And government has failed to have, when you look at Sustainable Goal 4, which is inclusive and mostly quality education. We have seen very many schools around social media. The UPE schools, even the secondary schools, you've seen photos of those schools. You've seen schools under the UPE. Students going studying from under what?
Trees.
Under trees. You've seen infrastructures where you even sit at your home and look at that photo and even cry, feel within you, and then so that, to me, I feel the government is fueling the high cost. Because maybe they are part of the persons who have invested in the business of schools. Yes, if they are failing to me the question would be, why are they failing to have the UPE schools? They have the infrastructures. I believe as a parent, I would want to take my child to a school where there is security. I look at security as a parent. If my child is going to study under a tree, what if the branch falls? So there is no security. What if it rains? There is a time they showed a photo where students were seated in a school on bricks and it rained, there was water. So there, which security? We are talking about security. Within schools, UPE schools, there is no security there. As a parent, it's one of the things I'll look at when I'm taking my child to a school. And that is, now I'm talking about UPE. Yes? Because I feel, because the government has failed to work to the parents' expectations within the UPE schools. That is why the parents are running to the private schools. And that is giving market. So the first answer I would say that where you ask me, what is leading to the high costs? Because it's business. Business for fellow citizens, business for very many government officials, and maybe business for government because they get taxes from those schools, private schools. And again, when you look at he already talked about the budget. How much money is paid to the teachers in the public schools? So schools, education has been so much commercialized, which is wrong. On my side, I feel it's wrong. And then the prices, we see now the economy in Uganda right now. So if we are making the schools, if we are making education business oriented, what would you expect if the owner of the school has to go to a shop to buy things, to someone else's business, or to a hotel? It is someone else's business, and they're paying huge money because of either taxes, because one of the things now affecting people in business are taxes. How would you expect them to go and pay a lot of money because of the other person is looking at taxes and also making profits? They'll borrow the same to go back to the schools. Okay, I'll also wait for you when you're bringing your child to school. Yes, so the prices are high because of the different factors. The corruption is another thing. Everything now in Uganda, corruption is something that is normalized. So the hiking of school fees is because people are corrupt. People no longer feel for their citizens. Fellow citizens no longer feel for other citizens. So hiking prices because they need profits, it is normal to everyone, to the people having the schools. Then even the country failing to have a law that regulates the fee structure of the schools, because every day where I stay.
Do you think that's possible in a liberal and free market economy like ours, for government to intervene into
Yes, it is.
the private affairs, business affairs of citizens?
It is if they are not also part of the people benefiting from it. But because most of the things, the government officials are the people running mostly those schools, are the people involved in most of the things that are dying in the country, so it can't be possible.
So they are
but
not
I
doing
believe
it because they have a vested interest?
Yes, I believe. Personally, as I believe that is it. Because if they don't have it, why isn't it there? So there are a lot more factors that are leading to high prices. Then I believe schools now, it's one of the now when schools were starting around the area where I live, around 2 new nursery schools came up. Yet there are other schools. And I asked myself, is there a law that regulates? That is why I'm calling it a business. But remember, this is education.
Isn't that a response to the surging population, perhaps? That could be the justification. That our population has since, rapidly and exponentially grown. So there is an actual need.
So is there a checklist
to come up to meet
which
the demands?
Which is okay.
The educational demands
if
of the
it
population.
is it is put there to meet the demands. What is the checklist on the many cropping schools? Has government, the Ministry of Education, put there a checklist that before schools are coming in place, before school is set up there, what is the checklist we are putting there? Because you even see that many schools that are put there, yes, they will have the headmistress, they will put on in the school, the teachers, but the owner sometimes doesn't have even passion around education. Yes, not passion because they went to school, but what is the driving force behind the person starting a school? Is there a checklist around the driving force? Is someone coming into it as business, or they have passion for what?
Of a service.
Of a service. It is something, but because remember, education, health, like Mr. Ochieno said, there are things we don't have to play with. Because at the end of the day, this person who is going to go to school is the next doctor, is the next lawyer, is the next again teacher. So there are very many factors that are leading to high prices that are, yes, the main for me, if I'm as a citizen, if I'm to say who is the person the government should look at, how are they invested in their public schools? Yes. 2, limit this cropping the many cropping public schools with high prices. What has the government done to feel for the people? Then even as citizens, somehow we are contributing because now this is a business. So it is like in Uganda, education has become commercial. It is something so
a commodity.
It
It's
is
no
a
longer
commodity.
public service.
It is no longer public service. It's no longer something we feel like, what is the end results? Which kind of people do I want to bring, like, to at the end result? Which kind of students or people, citizens, do I want to do what? To produce? That is why you see at the time of exams, schools even end up having students not do exams because they didn't pay school fees. Of recent, was it at the end of last year, where a young child killed, an infant killed themselves within a school just because they refused the child to go back home. The parent had not finished school fees. So the problem is around the laws in the country, how the government is handling the public schools, how the government is handling taxation around school. It is a lot, like I've explained.
Thank you, Winnie, for your perspective. Let me come to Mr. Bwesigye, Julius here. Julius, you must forgive me. While introducing you, I omitted to say that you have quite a significant background in the education sector as an educationist yourself, on top of course, being an advocate. But I know that for sure. What is your assessment of this problem? Because government is indeed a major stakeholder, and even constitutionally, it's an obligation actually of government to guarantee education to the citizens. But we also understand today that we live in a very liberalized free market economy, where we encourage competition as between the various players that offer educational services to the public. But yet again, we now have a very serious problem in the skyrocketing, prices and cost of education, much to the detriment of the parents and even the learners. What could be the cause of this issue?
Thank you so much, the moderator and my colleagues. Thank you for expounding on the topic beforehand. I would like to first maybe quote what Aristotle said. Because my approach is to look at this within a broader framework of general provision of social services in Uganda, like he intimated in his introductory remark. And Aristotle did mention that if you keep them struggling with the basic needs of life, they will be easy to govern. Basic needs of life like education, basic needs of life like health, basic needs of life like food and shelter, and etc. They will be vulnerable, they will be greedy, they will need a lot of brown envelopes and tokenism. And you, as the sole provider, will have an incredible opportunity to flourish over them, emerge as a liberator. Every time you give out a token, you emerge as a Mukombozi, a liberator. You have liberated them. So you have people, where does the duty to provide on the part of the government arise from? The social contract theory. Aristotle still. That the right of the government to collect taxes from the people, its citizens, is embedded in an obligation for that government to provide for its people. So a government that collects these taxes from the ordinary people, but does not proceed to provide as far as the social services are concerned, is literally stealing from the ordinary people. If you pay tax today and you have to pay an exorbitant tuition fee structure in a primary school, you have literally been cheated twice. Cheated by your government and cheated by this capitalist who has stolen money from the government, that has stolen it from you and invested it privately to start a venture called a private school. How have we killed our education system? It's been done softly. Softly. When I was very young, my deceased mother would use an example of a rat. She would say, Julius, if you don't shower, the rats will
lick your feet?
Exactly, at night. And she would say it will bite a bit and then release some soft air to keep the wound, you know. This is what has been happening for over the last 38 years. I'm sorry to mention 38 years because literally that's what I know. I have not seen any other government apart from this particular government. We have had university professors who, in my opinion, are the highly educated people in the country, being paid peanuts. And we have pulled our own kinsmen and women and placed them into parastatal enterprises established by the government, and we pay them 150% compared to what we pay to the university professors. If you walk onto Makerere University, you will find that the most paid professor takes home around 11 million or 12, something like that. You will find an associate professor is taking home around 9 million. You will find a junior lecturer is taking home 3 million, a mere paltry 3 million shillings. But walk into Uganda Airlines and see what the managing director is taking with her at the end of the month.
For a loss-making entity. Moreover,
So it means tacitly that young people will not see excellency as an indicator of victory, but shortcuts and tokenism shall be the order of the day. This is precisely how we have killed our education system. But the second question linked to this is then, why has this happened? I normally tend to think, and by the way, this is a personal opinion, that poverty is a tool of governance and domination. I refer to poverty and the corruption index in this country as tools of governance. That you must make people very, very poor, extremely poor. They must dwell in abject poverty. They must struggle to afford the basic needs of life. They must struggle with illnesses that should not ordinarily be killing a person. Why should a Ugandan die of malaria in this particular century? And why should a Ugandan, struggle with the basic needs of life? But it is a deliberate attempt, in my opinion, to one, undress the people of Uganda, make them vulnerable, and in a way, you had introduced the second question on the issue of the new political parties that are emerging, that a poor population that is poorly educated, because what's literacy today? Today we have university professors who cannot debate. We have university professors who cannot, one is at the university because the payment is paltry, it's very poor. He cannot reason in a critical manner. You see, he's giving an opinion, and you ask yourself, where did critical reasoning go? This is how we have killed our country, with an insufficient educational program, with our general failure to offer the people of Uganda a strong education background. Thank you.
thank you, Julius, for those observations. Mr. Joseph, Julius's perspective, I think it opens also some sort of floodgates to question whether government is very serious on the issue of regulation. Because Winfred also alluded to it when I posed the question that does government have the legitimate right to intervene in a free market economy to regulate the provision of education as a private service? To which you retorted in the affirmative by saying yes. So I now need you to help us shed more light on that. Given your governance experience, how is that practically possible here in Uganda? Because for the last 38 years, there seems to not even have been any attempt.
There couldn't be any attempt because for 38 years we've been ruled by a dictatorship that imposed itself, and ruled by a dictatorship that has ruled through fear, and ruled by a dictatorship that, as Julius suggests, has impoverished people and turned people into like mini slaves in terms when it comes to critical thinking. But actually, very interesting, as Julius was talking, this is a point I have been meaning to make, and I think I'm going to do some work on, and that is this question about poverty versus capturing the population. In established democracies, meaning, and in normal democracies, including a democracy under UPC government, usually average states, and good enough you got your background team in the camera are predominantly young people. This is actually normally the reality in nation states, including in the most capitalist state in the world, meaning America. It was Bill Clinton who said famously that it's the economy stupid, in quote, meaning the most important thing normally for voters and citizens is how they feel around themselves. So really, in practice, it should be the case that the poorer the population, the more they should be willing to resist these bandits except going to the bush, But somehow, strangely, and I need the psychologists to help us here and perhaps educators like yourself, we need to carry on this investigation, Winnie. Why it is that poverty has worked here to the advantage of the regime. What happened? But that's a like different topic. I have an idea. But that's just food for thought. So normally, when states do not provide for the citizens, when inflation goes high, when normally taxation is up, when it is the case that unemployment goes high, governments, people governing political parties normally tend to lose elections. But as I said, I put a disclaimer because here, Mr. Museveni will not depend on your votes anyway because he has never depended on your votes, certainly since 1986. So that's important, but just think about it. Maybe it's a topic we need to come back on another day on this focus on parliament conversation. But on the question of regulation, no. Winnie is absolutely right, and this is what I said at the introduction. No. The role of government, which is responsible, would not really have major contradictions with education being provided as a public service and a private entity that exists side by side with that. In this Uganda, there ever were private schools, but they were simply not popular. The most popular was, I think, Namasagili College, which was then being led by the famous Father Grimes. In this country, in my time, after your primary leaving exams, your parent does not need to make any phone call. Because your results will speak for it, you'll go through the process, no corruption, and people know the marks that you got. They know the cut-off point for Mwiri, they know the cut-off point for Christ the King Kalisizo, they know the cut-off point for, in this case, maybe Moroto High School. And it's not a... It's not Teso College. It's not negotiable. So you get it and you don't necessarily have to visit the school. Ironically, I was so motivated as a young person, a different topic actually, this was my memoirs. I made sure I visited Mwiri, and yet I was among the top in the country. But I still wanted to go and make sure that, well, my position, my place was there. So I went, and for me, I went on my own actually. Another thing for you parents, as a primary school kid, top grade, using a train to go to look for this Mwiri thing. So that was part of a motivation for a young student, for young people. But again, as I mentioned for this. So, come the critical point. Governments will regulate MTN. Governments should regulate Airtel. By the way, the bosses of MTN and Airtel, I'm going to be visiting them because of the exploitative nature in which they do their businesses. Since Mr. Museveni and this team are not doing it, I'm going to be able to do it and to expose them. That will be in terms of exorbitant costs and services. Also in terms of whether or not you're able to get network in your place in Pererwe, you know? It's the government's responsibility to say that, look, when you come as MTN, as part of the deal, in terms of, before we commission and give you the license to operate in Uganda, these are the tick sheets that we need to talk about. You must be able to meet this criteria and make sure that you provide, in this case, possible for 90% coverage in the whole country. And we will make sure that the satisfaction rate for our citizenry is possibly 80% to 90%, something like that. If you don't meet this, you know, the sanctions are A, B, C, D. Those are governments that function, governments that work, governments who think, and the governments there for whom we pay to think and to act on our behalf. So when it comes to the question of education, some of the things are, as Winnie said at the beginning, before you open your private education, grant is for profit, and the private schools, by the way, in the UK, where I lived exile life, predominantly education kind of stuff, and education generally publicly free, you know. But the private schools, like particularly for the popular Eton, you know, but those are schools for the privileged. So if you want to go and show that you're posh, and so long as you've not stolen public money, and you want to take your children to Museveni and Family Uganda Limited private school in a particular corner of Nyabushozi, you know, and it's very top down there, take your children there if you can afford. But the bottom line is the responsible government to make sure that do they meet the standards, health and safety provisions, teachers, certification for who are going to be the directors of education, how many teachers, how many classrooms, are there facilities for girl children and all this kind of small stuff. Is there playgrounds, part of the universal provision for education as part of the UNESCO and as part of the UN Convention. These days we are selling, schools are opening, including in people's back garden, in this case possible, worse, actually in people's garages, you know, and then there's no play centers for children. We are killing our own children and killing our own futures openly. Government should be able to do. So that is part of regulation. Forget about the fees thing. Then when you come to the fees, Ministry of Education, some schools inspectorate, and used to be schools inspectorate, you are charging 1 million Uganda shillings for uniform. Where are you buying them? The regulation, the intervention is thing. So some of these things can and should be done.
In a minute, let me ask this question. In a minute, we are going for a break.
Sorry. Yeah.
Is it possible for government to facilitate a law, an actual law regulating this in Parliament?
It existed, as I said, even in the UPC time, as I said, we had private schools. But then some of the church schools were by and large predominantly private. But they worked side by side with institutions. It is, and it happens around the world.
And so put a cap on the maximum amount to be charged.
Do you know what?
In an education facility?
Partly that, you can do a cap, but also on the other hand, sometimes, if government, and that's my view, the UPC way is to inject resources into public education, so that there is no reason for a child to live in Abisunsa that the UPC built for the pals of this world, for them to go and look for Janet and Museveni, Uganda Limited, and a tree school in a particular corner of Nakasero. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you want to take your child, that's neither here nor there. Inject resources in Abisunsa and make sure that Abisunsa, as we built it, UPC built in Abisunsa, by the way, we built it as a girl child school. But you know, we built and equipped it with everything. So meaning, therefore, your child goes to Abisunsa, there is everything, including scholastic materials, including facilities for teachers and accommodation, everything, and teachers are well paid, as Julius said. So really, you've done your PLE in Chiwatule, PS, you know, and got your position in Abisunsa. Why do you want to go to Nakasero SS-S, secondary school? Because sometimes they call it Jesus Allows Me School, but it's actually school built by stolen public money. Why do you want to do that? There will be no need to do that. So really, the more we equip public schools and ensure guaranteed standards, there will be no need. Somebody was asking me on a related topic, because there's been a topic actually going around in the Kampala media, including this question about international schools. I said, actually, international schools are neither here nor there. But again, in our time, international schools would really basically for posh privilege, people with some excess money, sometimes some particular parents who want to show off. Oh, my children attend international schools because they want to speak those languages with broken nose kind of stuff. No, let them go to their international schools. Generally, there will be no need for those schools. Now, if somebody comes and calls them international schools and they call them investors, let them come, pay the responsible taxes, make sure that they open up a school where there is all the facilities, including playgrounds, you know, and they play by the rules. And if they do so, let them make their reasonable profit. I was linking that to the MTNs and the Airtels of this world. Do you know what governments do about regulations that have discussed these things, including taxation? A sensible government would make sure that MTN does not charge you over a certain amount of money in terms of a ceiling for profit. That's what they should be able to do. And there's no reason why it should not be in education, including perhaps the same thing that would apply for health, which is a slightly different matter. No, responsible governments do. These are matters of policy, matters of polity. We have impunity in this country, and younger people like you have not been sharpened enough to realize some of these realities and to challenge these people. That's really the main problem. So by and large, it's really a question of ignorance rather than anything else. Museveni has been a disaster when it comes to some of these public policy issues.
Focus on Parliament now takes a short break. After the break, we visit the question of the formation of the new Patriotic League of Uganda and whether it has implications for the Ugandan political landscape. See you after the break.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back. This is the Focus on Parliament show on Civic Space TV. In this segment, we analyze the implications of the newly formed Uganda Patriotic League, the civil pressure group that has close linkages with the first son, the Lieutenant Muhoozi Kainerugaba, and its implications on the Ugandan political landscape. I'll start with you, Winfred. So we have seen this association, a so-called pressure group, or I think some of the founders have actually called it even a civic group. As to whether it suits the standard, we'll leave it to them. But I want to ask you, this has metamorphosed from the MK movement, a group that has called for, the first son emerging and assuming power as a successor to the father, as the future president of this republic. Where do you see this thing going? Is it just, a change of color? Is it a change of courts? Or is it actually a solid entity that can agitate for the future presidents of the first son?
I see it as confusing Ugandans more. Like how they were how Julius told us that in the first session, how maybe government is trying to make the people either poor, more confused. To me now I'm bringing it in there, keeping Ugandans confused every other day from MK to a new name. And to me, I feel it is more confusing and leading us to more confusion and getting us away from focus. If someone is not really ready to be focused, I'll use the words, some of the words Honorable Mukula used. I believe he's still an honorable. When he tells us that this is a party committed to fostering unity, and again tells us this is a party that is going to be non-partisan, a league. Now it's a league. No, they don't use a party. It's going to be non-partisan, First of all, what is non-partisan from? A word used by Mukula, addressing people. And confusing, that is why I'm saying it's confusing us, because they want to confuse us. How would you tell me an association, a group, or even that was formed, one, it is fronting MK to be the next president, right? Mm-hmm. Two, it is affiliated still to NRM, however much, because they are saying for us we are here to fight corruption, to fight to fight everything that has been going
all
wrong.
ills of the NRM.
Yes, but they are still within. Yes, but you're telling us they are going to be what?
Non-partisan.
To me already that is already trying to confuse me. You already, I don't know whether I don't want to say that Honorable Mukula was coming off already. He's also now being confused by whatever is going on within themselves. I don't know. But to me, I'm saying I don't want to say.
He's an aspect of the confusion himself.
I don't want to say that, but him coming off to tell us that this is a group that is going to be non-partisan, yet it's already affiliated to a party, yes, in government, and it's pushing an agenda of the next person. That is already being partisan. To me. So is it like the question you're asking, is it something that is going to be is it something we should look at up to our future? First of all, I would ask, why would they even want, because now General Moses has a rank in a government. I believe there is an influence he can make within the government. Why are they promising us all that we are coming to do this? We are coming to do this. We are fostering unity. We are fostering. We are looking at a civic what? Citizenship and civic duties. Why can't they do them within the government? For the past years, Moses has been in this government for how many years?
You could say from birth, as far as I know.
Not even him. The advisors to Mohons have been in the government for how many years? If they couldn't do it within NRM, why are they telling us they can do it within the pressure group? And again, within just ever since the last elections, I as a citizen, I would ask, what is tangible? What have they done with the many corruption? Because one of the things they are saying, they are coming to fight corruption. With the ongoing corruption that has been there, what is tangible that we can say before they rebranded to the new name? What is tangible that we can say that this group influenced around corruption, just around this era, ever since the last elections or the previous elections to today? We need to sit down. People need to sit down. Even them, they need to sit down, not just coming to us and say, we have come to do this. Let them tell us, we have worked around leadership, this is what we have done. Around corruption, this is what we have done. Then just giving up, because in Uganda, one thing I've seen around the leadership, around the government, around the policies, the paperwork is so good. Yes? Like how even their manifesto, when they were talking, it is so good. Their agenda is so good. It is so good when you read about it. But these are people who are affiliated, who are within the government now. Yes? The current government now. So let's measure them from the outcomes. So far, what have they done other than telling us, if we elect MK, this is what this is what we are going to do? Can we see them do it before? Can we see them hold people accountable? Around human rights issues, we have been having very many issues around human rights violations. And MK is a general. They're fronting a general. What has he done around the violations? Has he ever stood up and said, okay, around the different prisons they're saying, around the different, I hear different how, if the safe houses are there, has he ever woken up and said that, do you know what? As a general, as a person who is coming, who is looking at fighting the impurities within the government I am in, I have come up to look for the what? I don't want to bring it, but I remember in the case of Kakwenza, he was one of the persons listed. I don't say that it is true, but I remember he was one of the persons listed by Kakwenza that will cause violences to him. Yes? as a person who is inspiring, like he wants to change the government. He wants a better community for the citizenship of Uganda. He wants a better Ugandan. He wants a sustainable and a secure Uganda for every citizen. So far right now, we want to measure the new league from what they've done. What has he done around the issue of human rights violations, around the issues of safe houses, because he has a rank which is influential. What has he done? For us to measure the party, but their agenda are on the paper, their speech, as Honorable Mukula was saying, and then they told us how the president met them, and so there is a lot. There's behind the scene, to me, there is a lot. They have only tried to massage the picture on the paper. They have only mastered the game of speaking out what Ugandans want to hear. I feel, there's a time I feel, yesterday when I was trying to reflect, I was like, are they inspired with NOP? Because when NOP rose up, they saw what the citizens need. Citizens are so much under pressure, they really want change, if you see. And that is where NOP captured the favor from the people, because they're speaking the language of the people. And to me, I was like, NRM might be borrowed. They're trying to borrow this. Okay, can we have a pressure group within us? Speak the language of the people. Try to entice the people. And then we shall have something that looks like NOP within us. And maybe that can bring back the citizens to us, thinking that, okay, NRM has been in place for these years. They've worked on security like other people say. Instead of getting someone from outside NRM, we would be safer with these people who look like NOP. So to me, I feel like they are dressing, this is NRM, pressure group within, trying to dress what NOP...
The colors of the opposition.
Not the colors, because they can't take the colors. Trying to dress what NOP is doing on the ground, and they do it within. Thank you.
Interesting. Julius, we now have a new formation. As Winfred here correctly points out, it's confusing because in as much as its founders describe it as a civil-oriented organization, but we know for practical purposes, its core objective is to champion the future presidents of the first son. So the question arises, is this a smoke screen, to evade the sort of criticism that has been ongoing, that he's a serving military officer, he cannot directly participate in the province of politics? Is it a creative means of circumventing that criticism? Or these are actually, people that are genuinely concerned about the political trajectory the country is taking, and they mean well to say, we feel that this is the champion that will be able to reverse this situation. What can you say about this development?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Isaac Kwagala, and thank you, Winfred, for your candid elaboration. I want to begin on a very, very serious note. The issue of having Muhoozi Kainerugaba, a serving military officer, participate in the politics of the country and have the president, the commander-in-chief of the national forces, remain silent about the same is more than just counteracting the pressure that NUP is mounting on our country. It is an issue that has far-reaching constitutional questions. Questions to do with separation of powers. Questions to do with equality before the law. Questions to do with fidelity to our national constitution. We have heard before serving military officers being charged and imprisoned for mere making comments. We have had Brigadier Henry Tumukunde, then a brigadier. But okay, court cases and motions all over the country. We have had Sejusa, and we know his story, how he went into the exile for only making a statement as a serving military officer that the incumbent was preparing Muhoozi Kainerugaba to become a president. And that was interpreted in the constitutional realms of the duties of a serving military officer as provided for under Section 6 of the UPDF Act, that a serving military officer shall not be at liberty to participate in the national politics of the country, for such was espoused to be divisive and capable of dividing the national forces. But now to turn around and have the first son start a political party, not only declaring that he will be running for presidency in 2026.
It's now a league, it's not a party.
Please, we all know these are questions of form and substance. We know there could be by form that it's a league, but we know the substance.
True.
We also understand what would happen if a JJ Odongo from somewhere in a battalion, somewhere in Moroto, started the same. We know what kind of treatment he would be subjected to, and we understand that the same serving military officers deserve the same rights. Equality before the law is one of them. So it's more than just stating that they are counteracting a force. It goes into the fundamentals of the sanity of our government and its willingness to dedicate itself to the notions of rule of law, constitutionalism, and of course, issues of equality before the law. We ask ourselves a question: what if all the serving military officers started their political parties? How would they be treated? If, for example, other military officers declared their intentions to run for presidency. Yesterday, the Court of Appeal pronounced itself on the same, on the case of Omara, this LC5 Captain Omara, who had run for a chairmanship of somewhere in northern Uganda. And he did so as a serving military officer, and the courts were very, very thorough. They did reiterate the centrality of Section 6 of the UPDF that restricts the serving military officers from participating in direct partisan politics. And this question of having MK declare his intentions, start his political party, and we have the entire court-martial, which has harassed innocent civilians, suspecting them that they are starting, they are overthrowing the government, Poor military officers, poorly paid, poorly fed, poorly dressed, malnourished completely, and they are being harassed for harboring intentions of overthrowing the government. They have not made a statement. To have the first son declare that I will be running for presidency in 2026, that's treasonous. And a sane political leader, a commander-in-chief, would respond by subjecting such errant military officer to the rules of the court-martial, just as they have done for other political leaders. Like I did mention at the start of my discussion, that these are rules that are meant to disempower the ordinary people and dominate them. And so is the case for our national laws. We have seen our constitution being amended to achieve personal motives of particular individuals in this country. We have now gone to a point where they no longer even see other laws that govern the country. They are not bound by the rules that guide us, the poor people that have been poorly educated, poorly fed, and poorly, kept by our governance systems. So it's more than a question of someone becoming a president. And to be categorically clear, I harbor neutral views as far as MK presidency is concerned. He's a Ugandan like us, by the way. He's a Ugandan. He has all the requisites that are, for one to become a president. But my concern, and fundamentally, is that there is selective application of rules from the onset. That one uses the national institutions. You see, dear countrymen and women, those listening, wherever you are, this UPDF is more than an individual, is more than the figure of President Yoweri Museveni. There are many people who have grown up as orphans in the formation of the NRA and the current UPDF. I don't know if you understand that. There are so many gallant sons and daughters of this country who have shed their blood to have the UPDF take its form as it is today. This institution is supposed to be a national institution in character, in form, and in substance. To pull it and render it an institution of one family, to perpetuate the interests of an individual in the country, is an abuse of the sacrifice that our people paid for it to be as it is today. It is not only a matter of governance. What are the implications of this as I drive towards my conclusion? The implications of having rules apply to the people of this country in a selective manner are far-reaching. It divides them. Wait for the UPDF. This UPDF is governed under the idea of divide and rule. They elevate a few of them, kinsmen, those who are close to them by blood and association. They offer them high ranks that are not based on merit. They offer them high salaries. They offer them a lot of tokens so that they spy on the majority who are suppressed, the ordinary soldiers. But these are not ordinary soldiers. These are men who have gone into Congo and fought wars. These are men who have gone into Somalia and fought wars. These are men, gallant sons on national colors, who have paid the price for the stability that we can see today. When they turn around and pull their guns against those who are mistreating them, we won't like the result. That shall be the effect of selective application of rules. It further demotivates the people, the ordinary people, the onlookers. You, Isaac Kwagala, and these gallant panelists here will not derive motivation in the fact that we have an entire national institution of the army only being used to achieve the personal motives of an individual instead of the well-being of the entire population. We have today a lot of abuses. You have a pastor is being guarded by special forces. You have an MP, instead of being guarded by the national police, he's surrounded by pickup trucks of UPDF. When you go into the questions of how these guards that are guarding them are being funded, it all goes back to classified expenditure, my taxes. That as a taxpayer, I cannot inquire into the manner in which these taxes are being spent. Questions of accountability. But in the end, it's absolute abuse. And we must all be concerned as citizens of this land. Thank you.
Thank you, Julius, for your opinion. Mr. Joseph, I want to ask the question, and I will invite you to investigate the attitude of the Commander-in-Chief, the President, who also doubles as the father of the said General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, a serving military officer that has made public political pronouncements with respect to the question of succession. Now, this is a rather very complex affair for some of the reasons that Julius here correctly and factually points out. Number one, we have a father who is the sitting president. Then there is a son who expresses the interest to succeed him. But as we understand, he is precluded from participation in partisan politics by the Constitution. Goes ahead, violates that Constitution flagrantly, on the watch of the father. He condones those actions, much more to the rancor and, of course, disappointment of the larger population. What can we really, make out of this? Is this the NRM way of planning and implementing succession? Or this has always by design been the actual motivation of Mr. Museveni to have the son succeed him?
From a UPC perspective, I would sadly say, we told you so. There is nothing very specifically new about this. And in any case, the more you're asking your second phase of the question, it compelled me to review my contribution to this matter. One, that NRA thing was a fudge thing, Julius. It was one of the biggest frauds in our country, one of the biggest frauds in this region. Museveni started his Fronasa thing allegedly in Dar es Salaam. I was having a conversation, actually an academic conversation with somebody. We were trying to work on some postgrad stuff, and we were contextualizing the background of the Fronasa in the early 70s and where Museveni was, where Obote was, where UPC was, what the issues then in Tanzania were, and how some of the conflicts, in quote, that emerged later between identity, communities, particularly Langacholi in leading 1985, the blames and the counter-accusations and accusations and counter-accusations, and the allegations that Obote favored particular communities, particularly there's some people who thought that Obote allegedly favored Lang or Teso and the Westerner community, relative to a particular identity group. All these are things, mythical things. They all fight mythical stuff on the one hand, but on the other, Museveni was busy building allegedly Fronasa as an organization which was much more radically left. We had discussed some of the ideological things than UPC. And who were they? It has been argued some of the people were Fronasa by 1977-78. In fact, when they, carelessly attacked Tanzania, Fronasa was nowhere. Museveni goes on to massive recruitment, taking the Western Axis by beginning to recruit his kith and kin. And within some of the guys with whom they had mobilized themselves in Tanzania, it was very clear that there was almost a monolithic, or rather, a monolithic agenda pushed by Museveni, which was basically, you could argue, was a design to build an axis of a particular category in Western Uganda, link it with the Rwanda interest, if you can call it, and to see him almost hegemonic agenda. I need to say this very clearly, very deliberately. And this guy's designed, and that led to Fronasa, that led to the formation of UPM as this stratagem thing on rigging elections, not rigging elections, and going to torture our people in cause massacres in Luwero, on the alleged claim that elections had been rigged. All these are the schemes. I'm giving you the longer answer to these. All these were schemes. Mobilizing Banyarwanda refugees and people of Banyarwanda descent to support Museveni, and this NRA thing, now our thing, in this Uganda, where then UPC government had built a foundation for the most progressive refugee environment on this continent, to bring in our rightful citizens and friends and neighbors from Rwanda, in independent, free independent Uganda in the 60s, and then later go ahead and say that we mobilize ourselves then as kith and kin, go set up ourselves in Uganda, then go and reclaim Rwanda, which the Kagames eventually did. Yeah. Fast forward to where we are today. This NRA thing, as Museveni told you, I was having a conversation elsewhere, another separate conversation where somebody says Museveni doesn't tell lies. it's just people who misread him. So he was very categorical from the beginning, including more recent things. These are my boys. So the army is, as we know it, is his personal thing. One. Two, once we went ahead, the 1995 NRA Constitution, UPC defeated him in later back, supported by DP, our colleagues supported us in that, getting rid of Article 269. The Constitution, as we know it today, I call it, and we call it an NRA Constitution, because it was basically Museveni's instrument to cleanse this whole thing. You talked about a separation of powers, and you guys are two distinguished lawyers here. No. The executive belongs to Mr. Museveni. The judiciary belongs to Mr. Museveni. And the legislature belongs to Mr. Museveni. Who are these parliamentary? What are they? Kind of stuff. That's sort of the irony. And you guys in the media, the challenge is to make sure that you don't belong to Mr. Museveni, who does not control you guys. So that's really the thing. What am I saying? We can speculate what it is that young Mr. Museveni's son privileged to be a general in the army. By the way, he's the third general in their family from this NRA thing. Obote wrote in the early 90s, 1991, Notes on Concealment of Genocide in Uganda. I invite you all to read it. And he was referring in particular to genocide committed in northern Uganda and genocide committed in Luwero. And part of what Dr. Obote was arguing was, as of 1991, Luwero, Notes on Concealment of Genocide in Uganda. Now, the argument was that if Museveni launched a people's thing in war in Luwero, people's war in Luwero, and so therefore people committed themselves, and Luwero did, as we talk about it. 5 years later, from 1986, 5 years later, how many Baganda were generals, majors, senior officers? Obote was arguing that you could count in hands how many Baganda were the ranks of majors, and after captain is a major?
Yes.
Major, and perhaps a lieutenant colonel, a handful. The rest of the top command positions were quite clearly other identities, a preserve of a particular community, and in many cases, possibly without prejudice, people who eventually went on to Rwanda were part of that. That is the NRA that's part of the NRA that we talk about. So no, Ugandans have been taken for a ride on this thing. So look, I am disappointing you by not making it a structured composition. I'm simply saying Ugandans need to wake up to another fraud called NRA. This is Museveni. When Museveni goes and sits down and simply says that, well, who told you I'm anybody's servant? No.
Oh, yeah.
A president, elected president, should have the humility that I was trying to refer to. However popular. I'm not anybody's servant. I'm working for myself and my children. The guy said it openly. So what does it take? That's why I actually find it extremely insulting that the young Ugandans who are 38 and younger, many of them are men, actually, the predominant men, and they boast that they're handsome like me, and then the later they're educated. Oh, me, I must, Winnie, you know how we guys like to push you guys. You are also a man, and you're 40, and you're 38, and you're 36. And after 38 years of Museveni and this family thing, you go nyongo, this project, Muhozo, whatever. Are we a monarchy? Are we a monarchy? So really, Winnie, why can't you be our next president? I would be a PM. No, seriously. Why would you? I would be your top advisor, maybe from Nagongere. If you choose that I'm too, whatever, not to be in your government, I would advise you. What about you? You're the powerful Julius. What about the fantastic, yes, Mwami Kwagala?
Why not?
No, just think about it. So why must it come from Mr. Museveni's home? Why? No, you guys are being taken for a ride. So by then I find it, there's a certain journalist in a particular national television, in fact, who joked with me, and I think he was serious, was trying to push this Muhozi thing, project thing. Oh, he's a nice man. Have you met? And he did once. I appeared on the program twice in 3 weeks over that period. And he pushed a other time. I realized that I think he was pushing something. No, I took a very firm position with him. And I really, really told him off. Me? To play second fiddle to Museveni? And to his family, I will not do it.
It's an insult to your
No, it's an
intelligence.
absolute insult. Not only to me, it's an insult to my family.
And
I've got
also
fantastic,
believe in you.
absolutely, and to my children and children's children. This fight is not for Akokoro. This fight has never been for Nagongara. No, this fight has been for the Republic of Uganda and for the African posterity across and up and including Brazil. That is what I push for. And you guys, Africans, let's wake up. No, this country is not a monarchy, and I've even suggested that even in the event that it were a monarchy, and I lived under a democratic monarchy in Britain, when Queen Elizabeth was there, you saw how her son behaved, Prince Charles. You know, you saw how her son, and by the media would push on this thing and simply saying that, well, maybe he's waiting, the mother should maybe abdicate for him. No, there are systems in place. But while that is actually happening at the monarchy, at number 10, of course, now the Sunnites, these are terrible conservatives because I'm progressive left Labour. You know what I'm saying? No, government works in Downing Street. You can call it anything. And even that parliament, it works. But most importantly, when you go to local government, which is basically my expertise, in the town hall places, no, systems work. When I land in Heathrow or whatever airport today in Britain, it will work. And when I go to get any local services, it will work. And when I complain, I'll go to complain to a member of parliament. It does not have to be a member of parliament of the governing political party. They have power. And they do not have to be members of parliament of the political party that support citizenry right, as Julius is trying to talk. And that's the democracy that we need to claim for our country. That's the system that we need to claim for this country. And by and large, that is what we need to claim for this continent. Do you know what?
As you
If you don't mind,
share your
yes. At the introductory
closing
thing, we talked deliberate about this new liberal agenda. It's part of the campaign that I'm on, you know. The Washington consensus has failed. African young youth need to very urgently wake up beyond Museveni and his thing. You know, we need to claim ownership of our communities. We need to claim ownership of thought. We need to become critical thinkers. We need to ideologically become conscious. We need to begin to intellectualize conversations around education, health, public services, our natural resources, taxation, the environment, and particularly the environment in the framework of current crisis of climate change. And we need to do so in a globalized world where China is now the power. And we need to do so cognizant of the fact that China and India now again controls some of the big establishments around Kampala, when Ugandan children are basically working as tiny little askaris. We need to ask ourselves what is going to happen in 20 years' time. Should we then go ahead and outsource our current continent to others? You guys, do you really want to be slaves in 30 years' time when you're my age? 30 years' time in your own countries, willingly and voluntarily? Do you really want to do that? What my grandfather fought for and his leg broken in the 50s to set free this country, I reject that. So you guys, think about it. These guys are agents, they're failures, but they've got an agenda and they think they've mobilized and put it for themselves. Do this not for UPC, do this not for Ochieno. You don't actually have to do it for Uganda, you have to do it for humanity. But in our case, as Africans, unfortunately, it's for our children's children. Museveni is taking you guys for a ride. Wake up, Ugandans.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph Ochieno, for your rather strong observations on today's topic. Winnie, your parting shot, rather.
Like how Joseph has said, we need to open our eyes. We can't say that. He has said Moses is also a citizen. If he has passed through the real procedures, it is okay for him to do what? To stand as president. But is it what really we want? And as Ugandan, like I said, still, what is in there for us that if we go back and look at what he has done for the country, given the positions he has been in, leave around that Moho's project he has helped this one, I mean for the country, around issues of human rights, leave around the few people he helps with business. We are talking about, me personally, I come from the human rights perspective. What has he done for the country around issues of human rights, issues of violations that are going on within the country, issues of this last time the father released the rapist defilers, not even rapists, defilers. What as a general did he even stand up and speak about? So personally, I wouldn't have any problem with Muhoozi succeeding the father if he had a track record of feeling for the citizens, feeling for the people. If it's there, well and good. But again, the things of bringing the league into place right now, I still say that it is just a confusion. Maybe they're strategically, for them, their strategies, if the business is trying to dive down, find ways of rebranding. And I feel they're trying to rebrand so that they can still take on the Uganda. So as citizens, we need to weigh, we need to be watchful every day, like the Bible tells us, be watchful. It is the time to be watchful more than ever as citizens. Otherwise, we are still going to be eaten. We are the people on the plate, we are the food. So it is us to choose whether to still be eaten or to sit, be watchful and decide for our country, for a sustainable, like how the league is saying, they are looking at a sustainable country for every citizen. Let's be watchful and check ourselves and say, which kind of sustainability are they talking about, and which kind of sustainability, which kind of country are we envisioning that they're bringing on table?
Thank you, Winfred. Julius, your closing remarks on the
Thank you so much. You will afford me just a few minutes to conclude. When Lee Kuan Yew, in around 1957, just a few years after rising to power, was asked his main agenda, his response was simple: education. So they would ask, how are you going to transform our national economy? Education. How are you going to improve our health? Education. How are you going to improve the infrastructure of this country? Education. And later on, in his subsequent speeches, he took the opportunity to elaborate how indeed education would be the sole tool for the transformation of Singapore. And you see, today, Singapore is a first world country with the strongest high-tech economy in the world. Education should be the litmus paper against which we, as the ordinary people, must assess the sanity of our governance system. For the last 38 years, we have had the NRM in office. In the last 38 years, with their military background, they have played a significant role that we may not, by the way, ably object. They have pacified the region. They have made some contributions towards that. But I want to offer you an example of the Republic of Rwanda. Here, liberated from the thorns of genocide in 1994, and with the Uganda People's Defense Forces playing a front role in this. Rwanda has transitioned itself from a poverty-stricken nation to almost a first world country as I speak today. When you walk into Kigali, you might be mistaken to think that you are somewhere in Europe, not in Africa. When you see the orderliness in their public transport system, when you see the level of development as far as their banking sector is concerned, their insurance, when you see the manner in which their national police force conducts itself, you know, Mr. Ochieno, you're driving a car in Kigali, it has a puncture, a tire puncture. In 5 minutes, 2 police vehicles are parked, one in front, one behind. They have all the lights warning the public not to, plumb into your car. When you have an accident in Kigali, a blink of 3 minutes, 1, 2, 3, you have a motorcycle, police officers around you there. This is a police force that is built on the frameworks of national development and transformation agenda. Who should be our next president in light of this? We have had military leaders make military victories. Our economy has remained poor. The state of social services has more than crumbled. Should our next leader really be a military leader? we need a leader who has a thorough understanding of public policies. I think this is a personal opinion to you, the viewers. We need a leader who really is able to learn and integrate ICT into the delivery of services and bring about economic improvement and ultimate transformation of our economy. When you talk about leadership, everyone says, we need a general, we need a soldier, we need a one. But my point is that, see, we can transition into a civilian leader who understands public policy, who understands constitutionalism, and who has the willingness and the moral charisma to respect the rule of law, uphold equality before the law, and offer opportunities to the people of Uganda on the basis of merit. Not the clan where you come from, not the tribe, not the role of your father in Royal Triangle, but on the basis of who Ochieno is and what he can put on table. We need such leadership. And this is the leadership that shall help us undo the wrongs that have been done onto this country for the last 38 years. I want to thank the Center for Constitutional Governance, and to you in particular, my brother. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
Let me appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen, for your able participation on this program on very critical matters respecting our national governance question. To you, our esteemed viewership, once again, we appreciate you for keeping us company from the start up to the conclusion of this show. To our production unit, thank you for keeping us on air. Our esteemed viewership, please engage us on our various social media platforms. We are on X. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also engage with us on Facebook. Till next time, be blessed.